Hello, and welcome back to Navigating Chronic Illness with Heart and Hope, a space for reflection, renewal, and grace in the midst of chronic illness and grief. I'm Valerie Alawier, and I'm so glad you're here today. Today, we're going to talk about something that many of us never expect, but that changes everything in an instant in ways that are both profound and overwhelming. The moment of new diagnosis. Whether it's a chronic illness, your first diagnosis, a condition that will last for the foreseeable future, or something that requires major lifestyle adjustments, a diagnosis often feels like a before and after moment in your life story. That moment can feel like life is splitting into two distinct timelines: the life you had and the one you now have to live. And even though others may focus on the practical next steps, like appointments, medications, and insurance approvals, what often gets lost is the deep emotional shock and the grief that comes with that single word: diagnosis. In past episodes, we have discussed the many layers of grief that come with chronic illness, that include friendships that may shift because you can't participate the way you used to, work that may change if your health now limits your energy or impacts your performance, and dreams that may be altered when certain paths no longer feel realistic. But in the space of new diagnosis, grief takes on a very specific form. It's raw, immediate, sometimes even hidden beneath the shock. Before you can begin to process what this new reality means, your mind may still be trying to reconcile what just happened. You may hear the doctor's words and nod politely, but deep inside, everything goes quiet. You might even think, this can't be right. This is grief, even if it doesn't look like what others imagine grief to be. Grief is not only about death. Grief shows up whenever something important is lost, altered, or taken away. Acknowledging grief first means giving yourself permission to not rush into acceptance. It means saying, I'm allowed to feel heartbroken, afraid, or angry about what this diagnosis means for my life. Too often, the world around us wants us to jump straight into optimism. At least you caught it early. At least it's something manageable. At least it's not worse. These phrases, though well-intentioned, bypass the truth that something has been lost, a version of your health, your independence, your sense of control. For many of us, a diagnosis means saying goodbye to the version of life we thought we would have. It means mourning the sense of certainty we once carried, the independence we once relied upon, or the opportunities we assumed were ahead of us. This grief is real, and it deserves to be named. You are not weak for feeling it. You are human. So before we talk about coping or adapting, we pause here in this space for acknowledgement. When you first hear the words that define your condition, it can feel like someone has changed the language of your life overnight. Suddenly, you're being introduced to medical terms you may never have heard before, medications with names you can't pronounce, and decisions that feel impossibly high stakes. The overwhelm can show up in surprising ways. Maybe you forget simple things. Maybe you feel detached. Or maybe you can't remember what the doctor said, even though you really tried to listen carefully. This is not weakness or denial. It's the brain's way of protecting you. Shock is a natural response to sudden change. It keeps us functional in the short term, But if we stay there too long, it can prevent us from truly processing what's happening to us. This is why it's important to slow down, to breathe, and acknowledge the impact of the moment. If you've ever felt frozen, unable to cry, to plan, or to even move forward, that too is a part of the body's way of managing the overwhelm. Please give yourself some grace. The path to healing begins with recognizing that there is no right way to feel in those first days or weeks after diagnosis. Some people dive right into research, trying to learn everything they can. Others shut down, avoiding all mention of their condition. Both are valid. Both are ways of trying to regain a sense of control when life suddenly feels uncontrollable. Over time, you will begin to find your footing again. But in the beginning, it is enough to simply survive the wave of information and the emotions that comes your way. Although the diagnosis itself can feel like it takes something from you, it can also begin to offer clarity. For many people, naming the condition is the first step forward to understanding what's happening in their own bodies. Once that initial wave of shock begins to settle, you might start asking yourself new questions. What does this mean for my daily life, for my family, for my work? This is where grief and adaptation start to overlap. The future you imagined may need to shift, but that doesn't mean your future disappears. It just begins to take a new shape. A diagnosis can open the door to new treatments, new resources, and new communities of people who share your similar experience. When you are newly diagnosed, it helps to take things one step at a time. Here are a few practical practices to ground yourself. Give yourself permission to pause. You don't need to have all the answers immediately. Allow yourself some time and space to process everything that has happened before figuring out or taking next steps. Even if it's only a few minutes or a few hours, clarity reduces anxiety. Write down questions for your doctor. You won't remember everything in the moment. Keep a piece of paper handy, and as questions come to mind, jot them down and have them ready for your next communication with your doctor. Track your daily rhythms. Pay attention to your energy, your symptoms, and your emotions, and track them on a piece of paper, in the Notes app on your phone, or in a document or spreadsheet on your computer. Doing so gives you valuable information for both medical care and self-care. Look for credible resources. Patient advocacy groups and medical foundations often provide education written for people who are new to a condition. You can obtain a list of resources from your doctor or by searching online. Perhaps the most important step after diagnosis is self-compassion. Your body is not betraying you. Your worth is not defined by your illness. And your diagnosis doesn't erase your gifts, your voice, or your ability to live with purpose. There will be days of anger and days of sadness. Self-compassion means treating yourself gently, especially on those hard days. It means honoring your emotions without judgment. Allow yourself to move slowly. You don't need to have all the answers right away. There will be time to learn, time to adjust, and time to rebuild. You can simultaneously hold two truths: that a diagnosis hurts, and that it can also guide you toward the support you need. In moments like these, connection is not just helpful, it's essential. You may need different kinds of support at different stages, including medical, emotional, spiritual, or practical. This might be the time to reach out to a therapist or counselor who understands health related grief, or to connect with a coach who can help you to begin setting gentle goals when you feel ready. You may also decide to tell one safe person in your inner circle. You don't have to disclose to everyone, but confiding in someone you trust reduces the feelings of isolation. It might mean asking a friend to attend appointments with you, or letting a family member know what kind of help truly makes a difference during this time. Remember, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a declaration of your worth. One of the hardest parts of being newly diagnosed is your identity. You may ask yourself, who am I now? The truth is, you are still the same person you were before the diagnosis. You still carry the same passions, values, and strengths. What shifts is how you express them, how you pace yourself, and how you care for yourself. This is not about losing who you are. It's about discovering new ways to live as your authentic self and the reality you now face. In time, the diagnosis that once felt like an ending may become a turning point. You may discover new ways to care for yourself, new relationships, and even new purpose. That transformation doesn't erase the grief, it grows from it. Grace in this context is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about holding both truths at once, that something painful has happened and that healing is still possible. When life changes overnight, you are not expected to have all of it together by morning. You are invited instead to take one small, grace-filled step at a time. Hope after a new diagnosis looks different than the hope you had before. It's no longer about pretending everything will go back to the way it was. Instead, it's about finding new ways forward. Hope may be finding a new treatment that eases symptoms. Hope may be building a support system that truly understands. Hope may be discovering meaning, creativity, or leadership even in the midst of illness. As we close today's conversation, I invite you to take a deep breath and place your hand over your heart and say to yourself, this is a lot to hold, and I am doing the best that I can. If you're listening today and you're newly diagnosed, please know that you are not alone in this. Many of us have walked this road. Many of us are still walking it with you. Your grief is valid. Your confusion is normal. You're allowed to grieve, to rest, and to rebuild at your own pace, in your own way. This is a beginning. It may not be the one you wanted, but it can still be the beginning of a meaningful and authentic life. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Navigating Chronic Illness with Heart and Hope. Please be sure to download this week's free reflection guide, Holding Space for New Diagnosis, where I share gentle journaling prompts to help you process the shock, name your emotions, and begin to find your center again. Until next time, may you move forward with compassion, courage, and grace. Download this week's free reflection guide, Holding Space for a New Diagnosis at https://coaching-for-chronic-illness.kit.com/holding-space-for-a-new-diagnosis. Want to learn more? Subscribe to my newsletter for ongoing reflections, free tools, and notification of new episodes of Navigating Chronic Illness with Heart and Hope with Valerie Alawier, my video series on grief, illness, and gentle healing. Or visit us on our website at coachingforchronicillness.com to explore options to receive more support.